All right, Nate Helming here, Helming Athletics, back again another week. This week I want to talk about squatting, and I want to do hopefully a few videos, especially for you guys in the triathlon world who aren't super familiar with the strength and conditioning world, on how we do some of the things and why we do them. And I want to highlight a few ideas that I really think cross over really well. Personally have helped me translate the work that I'm doing here in the gym to better swimming, biking, and running outside, and actually vice versa. So one of the things we want to do, the first thing that we always do with any athlete whenever they come in, is squatting. And it's just one of those so key functional exercises. It's so broad, it's actually kind of hard even to know where to start. But we're going to start with three basic ideas I always like to go over to get you guys thinking about this. Now, a squat is just something that we do every single day. Every time we sit in and out of a chair, get off the ground, we're sitting on a curb at a concert festival, wherever, we're doing some sort of squatting motion. And anytime we're running, our hips are flexed, our knees are bent, we could even say we're doing some kind of mini squat. Cycling, we obviously see a whole lot of power being generated from this leg. So we can see that within the squat, there's this big hip extension that's happening and whole leg extension, and we can generate a lot of power there. So athletically, being powerful and learning to be powerful is really important. The other thing that's going to be really important is using this squat to develop better mechanics in the body and prevent injuries. Now, I don't know about you, but for me as a triathlete, a competitive one for several years, I ran into my few bumps and scrapes along the way. And maybe like many of you, I was told, especially by being evaluated by different physical therapists, that I was very quad dominant. My quads were very tight, my hip flexors very tight, and I was very weak back here in the posterior chain and the hamstrings and the glutes. And they would prescribe me hamstring strengthening exercises and glute strengthening exercises. And sometimes they take different shapes. Sometimes it would be some sort of bridge exercise or bridge on a ball, or it could even be, say, like a hamstring curl. Now, these exercises aren't bad as assistance pieces at all, but I want to step back. I want to look at the bigger picture, not just the anatomy of the specific muscles that are working, and see just how do I move? How do I sit down a little bit better? So we're going to come over here. I've got a little squatting station set up. We're going to learn some basic cues for a squat, and then how we even add a barbell in there. So the first thing that we like to talk about when we squat is just posture. I start tall, my feet are roughly shoulder width. We don't have to worry too much about how wide or how narrow our feet are, but we're going to go somewhere out shoulder width for the time. And I'm going to stand up tall, and I'm going to really emphasize tightening my belly and butt as tight as I can. This is going to create stability and tension in the spine, which is going to help me just recognize this perfect posture, but also it's going to prepare me to receive load eventually when I put a heavier barbell on my back. So my belly and butt are super tight. I'm going to drop down low in my squat, stand up tall, squeeze my belly and butt as tight as possible again. It's a great way to warm up. I suggest doing 5 or 10 reps of those things. Once I have this idea of posture down, my back's not moving, it's not bending forward. We sometimes see this. The other thing we see, the back arches a lot here. Once we've gotten rid of that, we're going to focus on to our next ideas. Our next idea is how we load the squat. Now, as I said before, I was dealing with injuries where I was very quad dominant. Sometimes I had IT issues or knee issues, and I was very, very weak back here. Well, one of the things I did with my squat is I either dropped straight down or I let my knees go first, if you can see. When our knees go first, we put a lot of pressure there. It feels a little shaky, it doesn't feel very good. So instead, what we want to do is initiate this movement with our hips. I'm going to really exaggerate this here. I'm going to push my hips back aggressively as I drop down. Now, pushing my hips back aggressively like this turns this whole posterior chain, we call this whole group of muscle behind us, our calves, our hamstrings, our butt, all the way up to our neck, our posterior chain, gets this on tension and firing. So just by pushing my hips back, I'm able to squat and engage my hamstrings. So we want those guys firing. That's a perfect way to do it. I've got a box here. I can use this for target practice. So I'm here. I can think about squatting down onto the box, right back up. A quick word on range of motion. When I'm pushing my hips back this way, Squatting deeper feels okay, or at least it should. But how deep should I go? Well, it really depends on your level of mobility, which means your flexibility and range of motion in the joints. Ideally, we'd like to see someone be able to get down pretty much butt all the way down to their ankles. But if I feel pain, if I feel like my knees are caving in or my toes are coming up off the ground or heels are coming up off the ground, I want to stop there. And what I can use, as I said, is this box for target practice. And I could even create a box of different heights. So I could create some plates up here and get a box that's a little bit higher, something like this. Once this feels pretty good, I can get my box a little bit lower. Eventually, to nothing down here. Very nice. So, posture, I'm very upright. Load, I'm properly pushing my hips back aggressively for my squat. The last idea, we really want to stabilize those knees. Now, a big issue with runners and cyclists is that we see their knees collapsing inwards a lot. This can sometimes set us up for maybe a sudden traumatic fall. We might tear some ligaments. ACLs are very commonly torn this way when we see that fall and crash in. Or just over time, over 5 or 10 years, we slowly wear away the cartilage in our knees. That's no good. We want to stabilize everything. So when we squat, we don't only push our hips back, but we think about pushing our knees out. One of my favorite cues that I like, imagine I could open up a seam in the floor and I want to push that floor apart as aggressively as possible. So as I go down, my hips go back, I'm going to push my knees out as much as I can, all the way back up. And you're going to notice that when I do that, it really engages hamstring, glutes a whole lot. For those of you who've been in and out of physical therapy, have done any sort of side step exercise with a band around your ankles, we're trying to target our glute medius, if you've seen those things. Our glute medius is one of those group of muscles in our side here that are responsible for external rotation of the hip, meaning my hip to go this way. So all I'm asking for you when I say knees out is to squat with external rotation. So we have those 3 ideas athletically. We want to practice each one at a time, then we can put them together. So finally, I've got my squats, I've got those down. I'm going to add a bar to it, and we're just going to cover a simple back squat today. So I'm over here. My squat rack is set up, it's just underneath my shoulder. So this is all set up. I'm going to get this rack just on my shoulders right here. I step back, I'm going to use my box in this case because it's helpful to have a little target when I'm starting. Posture, belly and butt super tight. I push my hips back, shove my knees out aggressively, touch, come back up. Hips back, knees out, touch, come back up. Again, one of the faults that we want to see, we want to make sure those knees don't go first. That's a shaky squat that doesn't feel very good. When we want to make sure the back doesn't move, it doesn't bend over this way, and it doesn't arch and overextend this way. That's the other thing that we see. So, there you have it. Some basic squatting mechanics to start things off. If you're new to the gym, this is a great place to start. You want to bring some strength and conditioning into your triathlon training. This is a great first place to get it going. Be back next week. See you.